too. That's not commercial.
No, this is definitely not commercial. You know, 10, 15 years ago, they probably could have made a commercial and made a pretty good money out of it. But like I say, nowadays, there's just not enough. There's just not enough people in the industry to manufacture stuff like this. And corn grinder, what?
I think it's like sand.
Well, this is actually ballast from the woodland scenes, plus a few other chunks that just roll down there. It's always interesting when a spider web comes out.
And I gather you get some sort of auger in there or something?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's more of a paddle wheel.
Paddle wheel,
The
okay.
auger would have same idea, thing rotating that
Just to push it.
pushing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you had and then you got your levers in there.
The what? What?
Okay, so everybody, we're back again on the Weathering Show. And how's everybody faring through this virus thing? I know it's driving me bananas, cabin fever, you might want to call it. Stay home if you have to. It's almost like that saying, you know, smoke them if you got them, but we don't have to do that. Anyway, I have a few things lined up that I want to show you. I mentioned a while back about doing festering rust on the roof. And I've pretty much got that down pat, and it's easy to show you. I put some pictures on Model Railroading Live for tonight's show of the St.L&H and Hebert loco that we're working on. So you can better see it in a photograph than you do on the show. It's just clearer. There's pictures there of the roof, and I'm not sure if you can see them. Let's just see here. Yeah, I'm going to try and do a screen share. First, I have to get that going like that, go like that, go like that, and we're good. Okay. That's not the exact picture I wanted to show you, but it'll work. So that's a close-up of what's been done so far on the dynamic brake. Let's see if I can make this bigger. No, it won't go any bigger. Okay, so there's the roof. And I don't know whether you can see the little lumps that are in the corner. That's done with hairspray. And the way you do it is you take a fine brush. It doesn't have to be really fine brush. I have what number is it? A number 3 liner brush or a round. And I take a little bit of hairspray. I buy hairspray. It's extra hold because I also use it for doing chipping paint. So it's a firm hold. I buy it in a pump bottle so I don't have to destroy the ozone layer. You put a little bit in the dish. And well, actually, let's just go through the pictures and then I'll show you how it's done. So after you've got the the powder or the hairspray dipped in powder and then touched on the roof, you come back with a sponge with the color just to make it all the same color. The powder's close, but it's not close enough, you know. Close, but no cigar. Okay, there's the side that was done just with the chipping and the heat distress on the side from the dynamic brake. And there's the other side. So now both sides look like that. It didn't. So both sides look like this now. And there's probably some fine line work that I'm going to do to accent the panels with Tamiya liner. And there's the top of the dynamic brake where the grills are, the fans. I'm back to that picture again. Okay, so stop sharing. Go back to here. And so there's the loco. I'm just going to set it there for now. This is the little dish I use to put the hairspray in. And because we don't need a lot, it's easy to, if you use one that has the pressurized sprayer, you'll end up spraying it all over the place. Come on, there we go. This in its own right is, even though it's water-based, it's called a lacquer, hair lacquer. And these are the powders I use. These are AIM, which are now Monroe powders, or you can use Bragdon powders. So what you do, let me just move this sideways a bit. This is just a piece of styrene plastic that has a brown on it. So what you do is you dip your brush in a hairspray, get it wet, and then you dip it in the powder. And it's not under the camera. So you dip it in the powder, and if it's too watery, you come back and get some more powder and add to it. And you can do it any shape or size. I usually only do it on the corners, like it would be in the corner of a roof. Once it's dry, it's on there pretty good. You can wipe it off with water before you use a fixative on it. But other than that, that's all there is to it. Once it's dry, you just spread it out a bit. And it's totally uneven, so it's like random, right? When it's dry, you come back with the gouaches and the sponge, and you dab your color that you have on the roof, like here. This color that I have in this area on the roof is the gouache. The same there is gouache with a little bit of the hairspray. So you come back now and you just blend it in with the color, because the color of the powder is slightly off from the paint that I use to do the weathering. And that's it. That's for that. The other thing I mentioned to you about taking trucks apart that I wanted to show you, I took some more photographs of that too. We're going to put this so I don't spill it. I guess we'll put it there. And we'll move that for now. I don't know whether you can see it. It's, come on. Doesn't want to focus. Anyway, it's uneven, and that's what you want, because that's like blistering rust, blistering through the paint. You can even come back with a makeup sponge and the same color paint that you're using for the locomotive, and just feather the edges a little bit so it looks like the rust is actually lifting the paint. The other thing that I wanted to show you, I'm going to share again, John. Get this down. Okay. I'll blow this up a bit. So this on the left is the bottom of the truck. So these little grooves here are where the wheel axles are going to go. And if you remember this is not the truck for this one. It's the one that I showed you. It's for Athearn, Cato. I think Intermountain has it as well. These little tabs, you have to lift them because they just fit over a little nub jewel that holds them in place. And you have to separate them from the main part of the truck body in the center so that you can lift this piece off. And what happens is these two pins, that's one on this side, one on the other side, when your truck is on, they go down through this little opening, and that's what locks the truck sides on. So if you try and take them off without, being real careful, of course, then you end up breaking them and the truck sides won't stay on. So you got to be real careful with these. You don't cut them off either. If you're using a knife to lift it, what I do is I lift it enough. I stick a little, I take the round toothpicks, I cut them in half, and I put the point down in where I had my little blade that separates it, or screwdriver or whatever. Put the toothpick in there to hold it while I move over to the other side. I open that one, and usually at that point it slides off the tabs that are holding it. Then you can go and do the other end. And once you get the other end done, right. So there's where your little tabs on the truck go in, and there's the little knobs that are holding the truck bottom on. So if you ever have to get in to check for cracked gear wheels on the axle, that's how you do it. If you want to take them off to paint them, that's also how you do it. When you've got it off, these will slide out. You can paint the face of the wheel rusty. And I use paint rather than any kind of powders, because the powders get off and get into the axle bearing. It's going to wear it prematurely. So that's another thing that, okay. So this one came off simply because, or easily because, Athearn, this is the old blue box type. It's just a matter of putting a screwdriver in and forcing it out. They're a press fit. And if they get too loose, then you have to somehow line the inside with maybe a piece of paper or something to hold it in tight. I haven't put the motor back in, but when it goes back on, it doesn't look, I think it looks fine. Now, when you get into the more expensive locomotives, you're going to have more detail in the tank. Usually the fill is a pipe that sticks out. And if you really want to get enthusiastic about it, you can actually take a piece of plastic, round plastic, and just cut a little knob and glue it on to that. There's a flat spot right there where the filler should be. And this other part is the sight glass. Usually the edge of, or the front edge of the sight glass has very fine red lines on it, around it with graduations. Obviously at this scale, you're not going to see that, but if you want to get into that much detail. So we now have the top of the locomotive, and the top of the locomotive is going to get weathered. Now this, other than the rust that I showed you on the roof, this is the only other time I use the powders. A lot of guys use a lot of powders to do all their weathering, and that's fine. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying that's just not my choice. I've played around with different powders and chalks, and those of you who know me know that I have pan pastels, and as far as I'm concerned, these are not meant to be used on plastic. They're chalk, and chalk does not work well on plastic. Let me get rid of this. Okay. So I always like to work like this. That way I can see if I'm doing a straight line or not. So I have some powder on here now. Oh, not very much though. So this is the stack. So there's going to be a lot of black and dark in around there. And going forward, same thing. Now I start off with a thin line, and if I want to make it wider, I can, depending on the age and how long it's been in service and how dirty it is, determines how wide this mark is. And if you ever get the chance to do any rail fanning from on top of a bridge, it's a perfect way to get to see what this looks like in person. I've played around studying, well, I've been doing this now for probably 10 years, and you get to know the pattern of dirt and dust and grime. Every time I get the opportunity, if there's a construction site around and there's some piece of equipment there that's showing any rust or whatever, I'm right in there like a dirty shirt taking photographs. The more photographs you get, the better reference you have for doing the job. And it's not hard to do. So a little bit up on the roof of the cab. Now, I don't have the cab seated properly, so it's not gonna. Okay, because I'm right-handed and I want to work on the other side, I got to flip it around. Any questions in there, Johnny? Everybody's talking and getting saying hello to each other, I'm sure. And I'll bet you Big Bill's in there too, and he's carrying on the chat as well. I'll bet. Now I'm not gonna dull coat this, although I can tell you when you dull coat it, the color is going to get darker. the lines, the panel lines and so on will become more pronounced as well. Problem is you get too much of this stuff on here. It goes all over the place. When you're doing powder work like this paint pigment, it's not very forgiving in the sense that if you've got your good shirt on or a good sweatshirt or t-shirt that you're in love with or your good pants, I suggest you go and change, because if you get this paint pigment, it's a little bit of a bitch to get out. So where you're working in the shop clothes, I'm not getting what? Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
Alrighty. Human City Junction. You say not to use pan pastels. What about Doc's weathering kit that Micromark sells, or the Vallejo powders?
Okay. So the key is to find out if they are chalk or paint pigment. Some guys are having great results, or at least they say they're having great results with um, the pan pastels. Docs, I believe, are paint pigment. I can't remember now. So you have Bragdon, you have AIM, or you have Monroe. Those are all paint pigment. Vallejo, I have I have one or two. No, I don't have the Vallejo. I have MIG and AK, and I don't like those as much as the paint pigment that I use. Now, the paint pigment that I use, there's 10 colors in the set, and they all come in a container like this, right? It's this size. But you can get, well, you can get them from Walters now under Monroe powders. Then there's a slightly bigger container, but it has 4 little ones inside. 4 sample, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is probably the best way to get it, to sample it. And I think it's about $10 or $12 for that package. Whereas these, I think Walters is selling them for $8 or $9. I used to be a dealer for AIM, and when he decided to sell to to Walters, I couldn't compete with the price anymore. So I have a good stock of these large containers, and I used to have a whole series of these. There's actually 3 of these different ones with the 4 in it, with different colors in them. And I used to take them to shows when I did a demonstration. And I used to get guys to pick numbers and so on, and get a free package or whatever. But I'm not a dealer anymore. So I can't, no, I was just going to say I can't do that anymore. Now, let me just say, continue on with that. Let me just say that pan pastels, chalks, they're great for working on structures, on your roadways, stuff that's not going to get a lot of abuse. They're great for laser cut kits if you want to add some interest. You can weather with them. Pan pastels, they have 72 different colors. So I mean, how can you go wrong with that? Other than the fact that they don't stick to plastic. They were designed for paper, for wood, and for canvas. But other than that, I stick with the paint pigment. Okay, you have a question.
Yeah. Where'd it go? Oh, ON30 Dave. What about Doc Ben's weathering stains?
That's I haven't used the stains, although it's funny because I can make any kind of thing I want from these powders. These powders mix with water. They mix with uh, mineral spirits. They mix with alcohol, and you can literally make up a wash and paint it on. And the whole idea of these is to scrub it in. If you don't scrub it in, it's going to blow off. The same with the pan pastels, especially with the pan pastels. You have to have a dull coat base, whether it's a matte finish from another manufacturer or it's the tester's dull coat. It needs something to grab onto, and you need to scrub it in or else it won't stay. Now this that I've done here now, if I really wanted to, I'll do it on here because I don't want to destroy what I've done. Where'd my brush go? There it is. I can scrub it on. Now this hasn't got dull coat on it, but it does have a semi-gloss paint on it. The nice thing about this is I can run my finger across it and it doesn't come off. But I can take, where's my spray? I'll wet my finger because I don't have, oh there, I do have a Kleenex. Before you fix it, you have the opportunity to correct it. It literally washes off. And what ends up happening, like I say, this didn't have the coating on, it's just paint. And I didn't have this very wet. But you can get it off. And the nice thing about it, when you do rub it off, you push it into the crevices by doing that too. And that's where you wanted it in the first place. So there's good and bad to making mistakes.
All right. You run naked, Rob. Does the color of the powders change after it's dull coated? Does it get lighter or darker?
They go a little bit darker after you seal it. I find that it enhances the color to me, but some people may not like that, so you just put on a little bit less. The whole thing, if you just, I watched some guys do it, and they'll take a brush like this, and they'll just, and it's done. Well, they never scrubbed it in, and when you go to spray it, you blow it off. So that's where one of the issues is with pan pastels. You really have to scrub it to get it to stay. They sell those little foam pad applicators and so on. I'd stick to a brush. This brush, it started out, the bristles were over a 1/4 inch long, almost 3/8 of an inch long. And that's all it's left after 4 years. So that's a number 4 flat. I like it this depth. So now if I buy a new brush, I'm going to cut it short. because this is easier to scrub with than a sponge. Any other questions? So after you put it on, it's good to sort of take it aside and blow off the excess before you spray. It always helps to get rid of the loose stuff. And then you overcoat it to finish it off. And you saw last week, I think it was last week, we did the fuel stains and so on the tank and the oil on the wheel bearings. You can do that with any black enamel paint if you want. You thin it out so that it's not pitch black, so that there is some transparency to it. The other thing you can do, and I've done this, I do this on N scale. I haven't done it on HO, but you can also do the powder on here. And then just to clean it off, you can either come back with a Q-tip that's been wet, or just come back with the same paint that you used to put this on, just to go down the middle of the dirt, because that's what ends up happening. The oil mixes with the road dirt, and you get this great big black blotch on the side. Okay. I have, although I told you guys we're doing 2 locomotives, I have a third one here that I'm working on. I'm working on for one of our regular chat guys, Tom. He's an N-scaler. So I've faded it, and I've put what they call rain marks on it. And you can see the different color. That was the original color, and that's what it is now. And when I overcoat this, the panels themselves will get a little bit darker, but the lines have that grayish color to them. Where's the cab gone? There it is. Yeah, to me, it's upside down. Come on. That focus? Okay. So I'm working on more than one locomotive at a time. I've done 9, 10, 11 already for Tom, N scale. N scale is not my scale. It's driving me nuts doing N scale. But what does Dwight have to say?
Oh, Dwight's always got something to say, you know him. And I don't know why yeah, I do know why my mic is not very loud.
All right.
Yeah, how about that?
That's good.
Yeah. I had it sitting way off on top of another computer. Dwight's question is, could you tell us how you airbrush it, paints, etc.?
That's a whole show in itself. I'm not
I
exactly sure what you mean.
Yeah.
Airbrush what?
Tune in June, Dwight, and he'll answer.
If you want, I'll do the next show all about airbrushing. I mean, Joe and I did a show on airbrushing, but I can do it again. No takers.
I'd say it takes a few minutes for them to.
Okay, I'm going to put this away, this base or chassis. Get it out of the way.
Well, Andrew Gilmore just said yes, please.
Yes, please. Okay.
For, I guess,
Airbrushing.
airbrushing.
Okay. So
Asked Dwight if he wants to see a show on that. He didn't answer back.
well, he's probably not even listening.
Yeah. They can't hear me. It's just me and you. Well, yeah, they can hear me. I forgot to turn my mic off.
Dave BNS NSF says bored to tears.
Yeah.
What can I do to make it more interesting for you?
No, he's probably bored to tears having to sit at home all the time.
Oh, okay.
Dwight say an N-scale loco. I guess he wants you to airbrush.
He wants me to airbrush an N-scale loco. Well, I just got finished doing about 5 of them, right? Paint job to decals and, pardon me, decals, and then weathering in N scale. We got what? We got a whole bunch of things to play with. N scale loco. Yeah. No, only which pants did you use? Oh, paints. Pants. Can't see. What paints do you use? Okay, paints. If I'm painting it from scratch or I'm repainting it, N scale, because it's so small, I don't bother stripping the paint off. I'll put a coat of St.L&H base coat first, primer. Depending on the color of the logo, like that Norfolk Southern, pardon me. I start out with black primer and then work from there. When I was doing the CSX one, I started out with a gray primer. St.L&H, made by Badger. St.L&H, STYNLR. Oh, it's a weird one. STYNYLREZ or Z. St.L&H, made by Badger. They also come in about 8 different colors. And it's best to know what base color or primer color works best with what color before you start. And if you don't know, if you know somebody that's in the auto body business, go talk to him. He'll tell you exactly which primers they use for what colors. Once I've got that done, then I use Badger paints, because you can get the Badger paints in the railroad specific colors. And that's about it. And I shoot them through my airbrush, and I usually mix them at about a 60-40 mix, 60 paint, 40% thinner. And it sprays through my airbrush just nice, as far as for me. And I spray at between 12 and 15 PSI. Some guys spray at 30, and I don't know how they get away with it. So Anyway, there's the CN loco that we were going to work on. And these trucks come apart the same as what I showed you earlier. And I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to see down in there, but right down inside, there's little tabs. Where are they? I think there's one down in there. There's another one there, and another one there. And you have to lift them, and it works best from the side. I mean, you can do it from the top, but you have to be really careful. And then this centerpiece comes off, and once it comes off, then the side frames come off. They're locked in by this plate here, the bottom plate. So you all I'm not going to tell you how to take the shell off a locomotive. We've all done it. You all know how to do it. So I've got the screws in that off. Come on. Now that I want it to come off, it doesn't want to come off. There we go. So that's all I have to do. So I got the shell off. Now I have the chassis to deal with. So in this case, this is a Kato unit. This side frame, the black piece along the top, comes off. The fuel tank comes off, slides off the bottom. And it actually comes apart in two pieces. There's a seam line right here. And there's tabs on the end that you just lift to separate it. Don't take these screws out. They're the ones that hold your motor in. These ones here. This has a speaker in the bottom, and if you have a locomotive like this with a speaker in the bottom, I suggest you go to your wife or your girlfriend or your mother and ask for an old pair of nylon stockings and take a piece and cut it to the size of this opening where the speaker is and glue it in on the back side or glue it down over the speaker. The speaker is a magnet, and as it's going along your tracks, it's attracting any metal filings or spikes or anything that is attracted to magnets that may have dropped on your track. And eventually it's going to ruin your speaker, or it may even get up into the drive of the motor because that's also magnets. So I suggest you do that. Just a piece of nylon, just inside over the speaker. So once that's off, once the side frames are off the wheels, then I take my Rust-Oleum, and I've been swearing up and down by Rust-Oleum camo, probably going on about 4 years now. I had a can go bad on me the other day. Instead of coming out a nice clean finish, I got all the matte material that was in the bottom of the can, even though I shook it for 5 minutes, and it ended up making the gas tank that I was spraying, the fuel tank, very rough, that I had to strip it and do it over again. So now I have Rust-Oleum satin paint, and I know that that doesn't have the matte material in it like the camo does. Maybe up until now I haven't been shaking the can of camo enough. I don't know. But finally I had one go bad on me. So you got to be careful. Rust-Oleum, they also make, they bought out testers. So they now make dull coat. What's the other thing that they make that it really screwed me up too? I had spent almost a month painting an RDC so that the metal finish on the fluted sides looked like stainless steel. I had the front and back of the unit painted in the proper scheme for 1954 Canadian National with the green, the yellow, and the black. And that's what took me the longest because of that shape that's on it. It's like two lines that come down like that. I went to overspray it, and the clear spray went right through the paint and attacked the plastic, and it made the plastic go curly, or I don't know what you call it, but it ruined the paint job. It ruined the plastic. I couldn't even strip it and save the plastic. So there was an RDC shell that ended up in the garbage. So you got to be careful. If you're going to use spray cans and stuff like that, test them on a scrap piece of plastic, because you never know. Duplicolor make a clear coat, and they're famous for changing their formula midstream. So you never know what's in the can. So I stick to my Tamiya paints. I have Tamiya clear. A flat clear is XF86. It's not going to show. FX86 anyway. Okay, and the other one is the flat, the semi-gloss, which I use when I'm doing the AK and the ammo, is X35. And usually with the Tamiya colors, X stands for glossy and XF stands for flat. So those are my go-to clears now. And dull coat is my final coat. Although I'm starting to change that now too. So the next thing I'm going to do on this, I have to pull the railings off. I have to take the side frames off, take the gas tank off, and keep working on that. This here comes apart. I have to take, like I say, the railings off. And unlike the red loco we just did, this one here, the walkway separates from the shell. I don't want to take it off now because it's the handrails. They're attached to the cab. So you have to be real careful when you take them off. And what I usually do is like so. I'll take my knife and just put it under and twist. And then it comes off. Put it under. Can't see it. Put it under and twist and pull it out of the hole. When I'm putting all the railings back on again, I will first I'll measure, I'll figure out which drill bit fits in there, and I'll mark it with pencil on the inside of the shell. It's gray on the inside, so I'll just mark it with pencil, my drill size. And then I'll come back with the drill bit when I'm done, after I've done all my different layers and the semi-gloss between each coat and all that kind of stuff, and my final dull coat, and I'll retap the holes with the drill bit so that the railings go back in properly. And then to make sure they stay on or stay in, or rather than using crazy glue, I use hobby tack. And I use a toothpick and just take the toothpick and put it a dab on each hole. And this stuff stays sticky, stays gummy. So it'll hold the railings on, and if they do come off, you can put them back on again with no problem, rather than gluing them on. Now I noticed on this was not my locomotive to start with. Somebody else had it before me. And the guy who did some, believe it or not, there is some weathering on there. I don't know whether you can see on the yellow walkway stripe, it's got some dark marks on it. Wasn't a really heavy duty weathering job, but whoever did it with some sort of wash. that I was able to take it off on this side. And that's okay if I can't, because I'm going to weather it anyway. But then you get into whoever put the radome on the top, I can see glue coming out from around the edges. I don't really like that. But I take everything apart. Now the railings are off. I take the cab off. Usually it separates from the nose. I try to get the windows out. They don't always come out. And some of them, and I'm not sure whether this is one of them, it looks like it might be. No, it's not. Some of them actually, these windows slide. Athearn Ready to Roll has the sliding windows like that, and they are a bitch to get out. So you have to mask them with liquid mask. I've seen guys use tape, and if you masking tape them, you'll never get a good seal on the edges. But with the liquid mask, there's no problem. So the other thing to mask is the number boards. And in this case, you can see here, there's the two light pipes on either side there. That's the ditch lights. And there's one in the middle. That's the headlight. They slide out. And then there's the one at the back that also comes out. But if they're glued in and you can't get them out, then you liquid mask the light pipes on the ends. So in this locomotive, looks like there's etched wipers on it as well. If I can't get the glass out, I have to take the wipers off. There's wipers front and back. Yep. So that's how far down I go when I take something apart. So there's nothing in the way when I'm doing my brush strokes. And if the walkway comes off, that's a bonus for me, because that's the best way to do it. The idea is to get the streaks to come down the way nature would normally go. It would come all the way down to the walkway. If I was doing this now with the walkway in place and the railings gone, I'd come down to about that far, and I can't go any further because I'm hitting the walkway. And then I'd have to turn my brush up like this, and you don't get a proper finish at the bottom. That's why on the other one, when I did my weathering without the walkway coming off, because it was part of the shell, I did my weathering going up. Starting to get a dry throat. Let me. Okay, liquid mask. I have a whole bunch of them. You can get Maskall from Humbrol. You can get Micromask from the same people who make microscale decals, and Microsol and Microset. They also make Micromask. Who else makes it? I can't think of any others. Oh, yeah, no, I can't think of any others right now. Oh, to me, Vallejo makes one as well. Yeah, liquid mask. It's got a black label. Got to have a sip of juice. And it's not alcohol juice. It's lemonade. Okay, so do we want an airbrush show next time before we start this logo, or what? Because what I can do, I'm going to have to fade this anyway, so I'm going to need an airbrush to do it. So I can do that. Okay. All right. Yeah. Going back to the liquid mask, you can paint it on, but I've had better success using a round toothpick. with the point on either end. Dip it in, and by doing that, you can get a dab of mask on the end of the toothpick, and it's just enough to do the lights, and then it helps you get into the corners of, say, the number boards or the corners of the windows. Whereas if you have a brush, you have this great big glob of masking material on it, and it's hard to control. But that's it. Oh, okay.
All right, let's see. Human City Junction was asking earlier where to find the videos. You have to go to YouTube, search for Mall Railroading Live. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up while you're there too. And go to videos and playlist. We have a number of playlists there, so you can. I think it's called Weathering Show or Ralph's Weathering Show, something like that. That's where all of Ralph's weathering shows are.
Yep.
You can go through all of them, binge watch them, whatever you want to do, since everybody's got time right now.
There's some on my YouTube page as well.
Oh, Elmar's asking, do you have a video on the prep work just to get to weathering?
Well, the prep work, let's say this is a brand new locomotive. You have no idea how many people have handled it and whatever. So I take that little silver dish that I had before, I put some alcohol in it, and I take Q-tips, and I wash everything down with a Q-tip. Don't spend a long time in one spot because the alcohol will remove the paint. So I wash it down with the alcohol. I also have a glove on so that I don't transfer oil to the body. And then once that's done, if I'm going to be using the mineral-based products, I will use the Tamiya semi-clear. If I'm going just to use gouaches and that sort of thing and paints, then I'll dull coat it. So like on this, I'm not sure whether I'm going to do a heavy job or a light job. I'll have to make that decision. But that's the things you have to consider before you start. What materials are you going to use? So, and normally when I do a weathering job, I start off with the semi-gloss. I'll go ahead and do whatever, and then I'll coat that layer with another thin layer, 50-50 mix, alcohol and semi-gloss, just to seal it, and then I'll move on. And next layer, if I'm going to do gouaches, then I'll use the flat finish. And when I want to seal that, I use whatever. If I'm going to go back to the mineral spirits again, I'll put the semi-gloss. And when I'm almost done, I'll just do the top of the locomotive with a little bit of dull coat, and then come back with the powders and do the streaking on it of the exhaust, and then finish it off with dull coat, and it's all done. Then put it back together again. It's tedious, but if you take the time, you'll do yourself some favors, really. So when's the next show? We have a show tomorrow, don't we, Johnny? Your show. Yeah. We should call that Who's Johnny Talking To? Cricket or Crooked? Crooked River, okay. Okay, so it's Crooked River. That's who Bill's going to be talking to on the 22nd. Yeah. So all our shows, doesn't matter which ones they are, unless we specify otherwise, it's always at 9 o'clock. And it would be in your interest to just verify it. Just go to our Facebook page, and you'll see. These notifications are usually up day before the show, sometimes sooner, depending on what's on the week. This week we have 3 shows, so it was kind of difficult to put them up ahead of time. So if you want to take a closer look at that St. Lawrence and Hebert, go to the Facebook page, look at tonight's notification. You'll see the photographs I put in that. And I can take some more pictures when it's all done and mounted and finished, and we'll go from there. We'll see Johnny tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. As they used to say, be there or be square.